Hey, it's Brad here, and I know 2020 was a really long and terrible year. In fact, it was extra long because we had 366 days due to leap year. However, there were some amazing things that happened in space in terms of discoveries and events that happened. So here are my top 10 events in space for the year 2020. Starting off at number 10, we have the potential discovery of phosphine on Venus. This was a huge discovery earlier in 2020, discovering phosphine. So this is a molecule that, in some cases on Earth, is actually produced by bacteria in caves. Now, the scientists went through lots of work to figure out what this phosphine could have been created or where it could have come from, and they concluded that it probably wasn't a geological process or a process that we know of on Venus. Now, some further analysis revealed that maybe it's not as strong, the significance of this discovery in terms of the actual data. So there's still a lot of jury's still out on phosphine on Venus. Back in June, coming in at number 9, we had the space rocket launch fiesta of 3 different companies launching rockets within 24 hours. And more so, 3 different continents having rocket launches all in that same period. So the whole party started off with Rocket Labs based in New Zealand launching their Electron rocket off. It was followed by a few hours later over in Florida with SpaceX's Starlink launching about 60 of their Starlink internet satellites up into orbit. And the party was ended by Japan's Interstellar Technologies. This is a private company based in Japan having one of their first test launches. Now, that didn't go fully according to plan, but it was still pretty good. And this was the exciting thing that we saw 3 different companies launching rockets from 3 different places. This is going to be a big part of 2021 in the future. Multiple countries doing multiple launches in orbit. At number 8, we have water. Specifically, more water or confirmation of more water on the moon and Mars. So some data looking at the underneath the ground, the subterranean water underneath Mars, was trying to confirm a previous result of, is there indeed a saltwater lake underneath the Martian soil? And not only did they confirm that there was indeed one of these lakes, but they found more lakes. So it appears that Mars has lots of water, specifically salt water, underneath its surface. So a really interesting discovery that they confirmed. And this was followed up by the SOFIA, so NASA and the German Space Agency's Flying Observatory SOFIA's confirmation of more water on the moon. And again, water is going to be a big part of something we hear in 2021, but specifically, this discovery showed that there is H2O molecules, so water molecules contained in the sunlit areas of the moon. So we'd seen previous evidence of some water molecules in the shadowy, colder, darker bits. But this is in the sunlit areas where the temperature is quite hot. So the question is, how does it get there? Is it still there? Is other sources like meteorites or stuff from space raining down and producing this water? So a really cool discovery. As cool almost as number 7, discovering the missing mass in the universe. So this was a cool discovery by Australian astronomers using what's called fast radio bursts. So these are explosions or bursts of intense radio light. And this radio light travels all the way through space. And what they did was they looked how this radio light from these fast radio bursts moved. And what they saw is as it moved, it appeared to be picking up or traveling through stuff between where it left and our telescopes here on Earth. And in fact, they think it was traveling through some of this missing mass. So when we look at what makes us up, or the atoms and the stuff that makes it me and you and my dog, that there's a lot of it that actually appears to be missing, bit different from dark matter. And this is a discovery that is promising because we've been plagued by these issues for over 50 years. At number 6, we have China's Chang'e 5 mission to the moon and back. China's Chang'e 5 launched in early December to go to the moon. It successfully went to the moon and drilled down about a couple of meters, grabbing as much soil and sample as they could, stored it in their container or their capsule on the lunar surface. That capsule then popped off the surface, went to its orbiter that was around the moon, and hitched a ride back to the Earth, landing safely in Mongolia in mid-December. So this has made China only the 3rd country after the US and Russia to successfully land on the moon, grab samples, and return them. So this is a really big technological achievement, not only for China, but for lots of groups in their reinvigoration of going back to the moon, something we're going to see a lot of in 2021. Coming in the top 5, WASP 76b, a planet so hot that at 2400 degrees it has iron in its atmosphere. And then as that atmosphere goes to the cooler side, it rains iron. So talk about an extreme planet, one found earlier this year. And in 2020, we had lots of cool discoveries related to black holes. So we saw the biggest, hungriest black hole weighing in at 34 billion. So that's B with a billion times the mass of our sun. So hungry it eats a sun or a solar mass per day. We also discovered the closest black hole to Earth, as you're seeing here, that the two stars in its orbit apparently were orbiting a third object, or a third object was involved in this star system. And this black hole is what we call a small black hole, or a stellar mass black hole, about 1,000 light years to Earth. So it is now the closest black hole, still at a safe distance to Earth. And something I was involved with, we saw the closest black hole eating or spaghettifying a star. So this was what we call spaghettification, the process of being ripped apart by the black hole. As a star or anything gets near the black hole, the gravity of the black hole starts to rip it apart and spew some of that stuff out into space. And this was the closest discovery to date of a spaghettification. At number 3, the Conga line, or 3 different missions going to Mars. We saw UAE, China, and the US all launched their missions to Mars between July and August. This represents the UAE's first mission to Mars, and really the first mission by a Middle Eastern country, and one of only a few, really at all, that have launched it. The UAE's Hope is on its way to Mars, will be entering the Martian orbit in early February, and it will do a kind of a global or planetary-wide measurement of the atmosphere of Mars. So similar to what a current instrument's doing up there called MAVEN, and those scientists worked a little bit with the UAE scientists to do their first mission to Mars. So really exciting thing for them. And it was followed by other launches. So as I said, we had China, the Chinese National Space Agency, launch their first rover to Mars. That will be landing again as well on the Martian soil in early to mid-February, in the earlier parts of February. So this would be the first rover launched or built by China to land on the Martian surface. And it'll do all sorts of cool experiments in science in a complementary way to some of the other missions that we've seen by the previous NASA rovers that have been there as well. And NASA launched their latest rover called Perseverance, which will also reach the Martian soil in early February. Now, Perseverance is built similar to the previous rover, Curiosity, but it's kind of an upgraded version with lots of new cool science and instruments, including really the ability to look for biological life forms and really signs of life, ancient life in the soil. It's landing in a crater that we believe was rich in water in the Martian past, and by landing in these places has a great chance to look for signs of life. And attached to Perseverance is a special thing called Ingenuity. And Ingenuity is essentially a helicopter that will be with Perseverance and will fly and search around the Martian soil and ground for great spots to kind of navigate and help guide Perseverance, but also just do some really cool science. So there will be a helicopter flying on Mars in 2021. Number 2, the first commercial launch of humans. So we saw SpaceX with their Crew Dragon back in August launch 2 astronauts on the Demo 2 mission. And this was the first time a private company has launched humans into space. A really, really big accomplishment, and something that even 5 years ago, people didn't think that maybe private people could be launched in the future, or more specifically, even a private company can launch people. Keeping in mind that in the past, it's only space agencies, really, like NASA and Russia, that have launched humans into space. And they followed this up with the first space crew mission, Crew 1, which saw 4 astronauts, 3 American astronauts, plus a Japanese astronaut, launched to the space station. A really exciting time, something that, again, we didn't necessarily think would happen in the future. But it really represents an exciting time to start seeing humans being launched by private companies, and it's going to open the door for 2021, seeing space tourism and private people and private astronauts going into space. So it marks a huge change in the way humans will go into space, and a very big achievement by the SpaceX team, having built the Crew Dragon, the capsule, and the rocket as well. And we're going to see more of this in 2021. As exciting as this is, it's still not my number one, which has to be asteroids, and really touching down on asteroids. Both the Hayabusa 2 mission and OSIRIS-REx. In early December, we saw Hayabusa 2, which earlier in 2019 had touched down on the surface of the asteroid Ryugu twice, and it took all of those rocks and samples, traveled through the South Australian skies in the early morning hours of December 6th, as you're seeing here, and successfully land or touch down in South Australia. A really remarkable mission to have a probe go to an asteroid, touch down on the surface twice, grab as much rock and stuff as it could, and come back. And the Australian involvement with the Japanese Space Agency is huge. A big achievement not only for science, but Australian scientists. And of course, NASA's OSIRIS-REx touched down on its asteroid Bennu as well, successfully touching down into the surface, grabbing as much rock and dirt as they could, and successfully closing the cap after grabbing too much. And it will make a return journey back, landing in 2023. So there you have it. That's my top 10 2020 space events. Lots of cool things, from asteroid touchdowns to black holes, humans in space, and more. And there's so many things to look forward to in 2021, so stay tuned for my top events and stories to look forward to in 2021.